You know, 42nd Street, Times Square area was a very good hangout for gay men, even though it was considered the red light district for New York City. It wasn't a gay area, but it was a sex haven. My name is Eric, and I'm going to tell you my experience 42nd Street, Times Square in the 1970s. Welcome to the craziness that lives inside my head. So, my gay experience in New York City, maybe like a lot of gay experience in New York City, um, I, in the beginning, I didn't hang out at the gay bars. I mean, I don't think well, I'm talking about the beginning. This is late 1960s. And coming out as a black gay man, didn't know too much about gay bars, but you did know if you want to pick up somebody, you go to a straight bar. Usually, you go to a straight bar, and you could pick up guys at straight bars. So anyway, I saw a movie. I heard about it. Came out in 1969, called Midnight Cowboy. Midnight Cowboy, which starred John Voight and Dustin Hoffman, was about two hustlers hustling on 42nd Street. I saw the movie, and because of the movie, I went down to 42nd Street, Times Square. That's because of the movie. So, I'm only what, 17, 18 years old on 42nd Street? Real scary, because I saw the movie. And my first experience, the first time on 42nd Street, my very first experience, I'm walking down, and it was, as somebody would say, it was Sodom and Gomorrah. You had movie theaters from 42nd Street, 8th Avenue to Times Square on 7th Avenue. You had these movie theaters, these porn movie theaters, regular movie theaters. Um, a lot of them were, not all of them were porn. You had one or two porn theaters, but mostly regular movie theaters. $2 now. $2 to get in. These theaters opens 24/7. 24/7 these theaters open. $2 to get in. So anyway, my very first experience, very first time went down there. I'm walking down 42nd Street. I'm looking at all. I'm like a tourist. You know, tourists in New York always staring. I'm staring. I've never been to a place like this. I was from Brooklyn. Brooklyn, and that time, Brooklyn shut down around 8, 9 o'clock. It's dead in Brooklyn. So I wasn't, as a young kid, I wasn't used to having things open 24/7. So I'm walking there, and this guy in the doorway. I mean, in the movie, you see these cowboys dressed like cowboys standing in the doorways on 42nd Street. They're hustlers, male prostitutes. So anyway, they had this big African guy, and you could tell he's from African guy from Africa. And he called me over, and he offered me $50 to suck my dick in his hotel room. I freaked out and ran to the nearest, I should say, hubble hubble, because I was fat, to the nearest train station, scared the shit out of me. And that was my very first experience on 42nd Street. Well, you know what happens. You go back. It's like a drug. You go back, because I heard so many stories about 42nd Street, what was on there. And it's interesting because in the movie, they had the Penny Arcade. They had Penny Arcade. Someone said it was Playland. In Playland, when you get off the train, it depends on how you get off the train. I think it was the beginning of the train. You get off, you go straight upstairs, you get right into Playland. Playland was Penny Arcade. They had these, well, now they're all digitals. These pinball machines all over the place, all kinds. They weren't digital back then. And in the movie, you had these old men, which I am now, picking up these young teenage boys. So I went there, and I don't know if I saw that or not. I mean, you had a lot of young boys, regular young adults, and you did have the old men. Everybody's playing on the machines, you know. And in the movie, one old man, that's how he picked up. I think it was John Voight. He was playing one of those video games, and he was an old man. And that's what the story was. That's what the rumor was when I was going to 42nd Street. Then you had, and my next experience on 42nd Street um, was we went to a porn theater, and the guy I went to the porn theater with was straight. We went to this porn theater, and in that my very first porn theater, I saw The Devil and Miss Jones, with Harry Reams and then the Love Lights. That was my very first porn I ever saw. A gay man, first porn I ever saw was a straight porn. And from there, I went to, my next experience was what they call the peep shows. They had these peep shows. They also were bookstores. But on 42nd Street, they had a lot of peep shows, and they also sold books. And I think that's why the bookstores started, because they had bookstores in the Village and certain places in Manhattan. They said bookstores, but if you go in there, they had these peep machines in the back, and in the back, that's where you go in the booth. You can watch, but you know what happens. You go in the booth and you keep the curtain open. You got a curtain. You sit there and watch the video, the porn video, and if a guy passed by and he likes you and he goes in there, he shut the curtain, and you know what happens. That was my third, I guess. My third experience, the peep show bookstores down on 42nd Street. Now I'm going to tell you something else. They also had a disco. They had a disco called Starship Discovery, and I went in there. Now I'm going to be honest with you. I went to Starship Discovery late 70s, early 80s when I went there. And the interesting thing about a lot of discos, I shouldn't say all the discos, there are some discos that you can go to that had what they call, remember I told you about the bars had back rooms? Well, a lot of discos had so-called back rooms. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, Starship Discovery had one. I know Crisco Disco had one. Starship Discovery had one. And I didn't hang out there too much. The thing about Starship Discovery, if I'm not mistaken, which was really weird, because mainly it was a mixed disco. You had a lot of straight people there. And I do remember a lot of gay men went there. You had a lot of straight people. And they had a back room, which was really weird. With all these straight people. You had a back room where the gay guys go. I think Starship had one. I know Crisco Disco didn't have one in the beginning. I think one time I went to Crisco Disco, they had one, which was really I'm gonna tell you something. In the late 70s, a lot of these bars, so-called, if it was gay oriented, a lot of bars are starting to have back rooms. I mean, let's face it, that's what attract gay men. They have these back rooms. You come in, you get a $2 drink, whatever. You had to buy a drink, and then you slip in the back, and you see somebody. You go in the corner, you have your sex, and you go home. And that how it was. Not that how it was for me. That's what I saw. The other thing, when I mentioned about the $2 movies, it was interesting because prostitutes, if you didn't have money, let's put it, if you didn't have money to get a hotel room, it's cheaper just to get a prostitute, pay her way into the movie house. You can pay your way to the movie house, and you go into the balconies and you screw around. It was cheaper than getting a room on 42nd Street, I'll tell you that. Now, there's other things that are going on 42nd Street. Bryant Park. You could go to Bryant Park, which further down, like I think 6th Avenue and 42nd Street, Bryant Park. And sometimes that happened. I had a friend. We was hanging out at Blues. Those who know who Blues was on 41st Street. We was hanging out in Blues, or 43rd Street, whatever. I think it was 43rd Street and 8th Avenue. Hang out in Blues, or 43rd Street and 9th Avenue. Hang out in Blues, and let's say Blues was so-called wasn't, they had a lot of drag queens in Blues, and you had a lot of gay men in Blues, but You could pick somebody up in Blues, which I had a friend who did that. Walk all the way down to 6th Avenue and 42nd Street in Bryant Park. Go into the bushes and have sex. And I'm gonna be honest with you. I had an experience with somebody I used to work with, and he took me down because we didn't work far from 42nd Street in Bryant. 42nd Street and I think 5th Avenue, and between 5th and 6th was the library, the New York City Library. We went there to the library and we had sex behind the library in the bushes. In the daytime. In the daytime. Having sex in the bushes in the daytime on 42nd Street. Well, there was also, I don't know the name of it, there was also a church on 40, it was on 8th Avenue, either between 42nd and 41st Street on 8th Avenue. I know a lot. Somebody say blasphemy, blasphemy, but let's say midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning. Yeah, guys would sit there, you sit there on the steps. The church has steps, and, you see a guy sitting on the steps, where they, hoeing around, prostitutes, But I brought up 42nd Street because when Giuliani cleaned up 42nd Street, he cleaned up 42nd Street. I haven't been on 42nd. Last time on 42nd Street had to be 2004, 2005. It was like Disney World, he had these theaters. He cleaned it up. Got rid of the prostitutes, got rid of the smut, what they call it, smut, and cleaned it up. And destroyed 42nd Street. He destroyed it. People say, you're crazy. He cleaned it up. No, he destroyed it. There's one thing about 42nd Street, I'm going to be honest with you. You could get laid walking up and down 42nd Street. You're going to find somebody to get laid. And like I said, you find somebody, and then they had bars on 42nd Street. Weren't gay bars, but they were regular bars. One of the bars I did go to was McCann. McCann Bars was on 42nd between 6 and 7th, I think. McCann Bar wasn't a gay bar, but you could go to McCann Bar and get picked up. I got picked up quite a few times in McCann's Bar. And if the person doesn't have a room or a house or apartment that you could go home to, you just go to the park, Bryant Park, go into the bushes, have your sex, and go on home. This is Eric. Thank you for listening to the craziness that lives inside my head.